All right, we are live. Hello and welcome everybody to Body Mind Living. I am so excited for our conversation today with Carolyn Ulitsky. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about Carolyn. And in total Laura style, I have a bit of a story that I want to share before we jump into that. And we do these interviews because I know, and I think if you've read any of Carolyn's articles in Body Mind Living magazine, the topics that we hear all the time in the wellness industry and in the personal growth industry, boundaries, values, self-love, right? Like how many of you have hearted all the self-love memes on Instagram and Facebook? We know these things, but living these things is another story.
Right.
And apparently I'm going to go into my story with you before we jump into this. But I remember, and I shared this with you yesterday as we were preparing for this, yes. I remember our first conversation. I had flown out to LA. I was staying with a friend. I think I was still on Eastern Standard Time, and you're such a morning person that we met at 7 a.m. on the phone. And
yes,
it was definitely early. And I remember the table I was sitting at, and I remember getting on the phone and just you have these moments where you're like, I can't believe that I get to work with such amazing people like you. And I feel like you and I just had this immediate connection. You shared with me what you do with your muscle therapy work. My dog Daisy is making noises in the background. You shared with me what you do with your muscle work. And, I know in BodyMind, what we do, we talk about coaching, we talk about the business structure and offers and breaking free from time for money. But one of the biggest things that I think we do is really the personal application and the personal work. And that's what I feel like I got to see with you. You are a baller therapist, right? We know that.
Yes, I will own that. The answer is yes.
Yes, we will. So, and also I know this journey for you was this Body Mind journey was very much a journey of self-love. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I will officially read your bio now. So Carolyn Ulitsky, she's a Body Mind coach and muscle therapist, and she is the owner of SomaWise Muscle Therapy. Her interest in the holistic healing arts spans over 20 years. She is most passionate about assisting her clients in creating connections back into their body, heart, and mind so they can live a joyful and full life. She helps her clients relate to the pain and guides them to the deeper meaning so that they can build a better relationship with themselves and their bodies. Carolyn's practice is in Pleasanton. Did I say that right? Pleasanton.
That is correct.
Pleasanton, California. What a name. And she has 3 amazing daughters and a son-in-law. And she just did a wedding. She officiated a wedding this past weekend. So she officially brings people together. That is just her heart and her soul and what she does. So, hi, welcome, Carolyn.
Hey,
hi.
Thank you.
Hi.
I'm excited. Yes.
I'm so excited you're here. So, this idea, we're here today to talk about self-love.
Yes.
And actually, before we jump into your story, I'm curious, what does self-love mean for you?
For me, it starts with that journey. I think when you and I first met on the phone, I ended up crying because I didn't realize I was on a self-love journey, other than I just wanted something different and added to my life. By putting yourself out there, right, you gave me an opportunity to see what's possible. And I could dream more and bigger. And signing up for your program, BodyMind coaching program, I didn't realize I was going to be unwinding and facing parts of myself that I had tucked away conveniently. Mm-hmm. And by unwinding those and learning to love those parts, they were painful. I mean, the program's not easy. And yet it allows you to claim those parts of you and love those parts. And that, I can't tell you what a huge difference it has made in my life. I mean, seriously, not just my personal life, but my business life, and how much I've grown. And now the opportunity to be here to write these articles and share what that journey means of self-love, which is just facing those parts and bringing them back home. I'm happier than I've ever been, and so much is opening up.
Wow.
So thank you.
I love what you just said, facing those parts and bringing them back home.
Yeah.
That's self-love. And it's so uncomfortable, right?
Very,
and
very,
very uncomfortable.
very uncomfortable. I think my biggest thing is the first time I came out for the retreat with BodyMind, I booked the wrong day to fly in. I didn't have, everything was a mess. That was how bad it was.
I never knew that. That's crazy.
Yes. So I was facing myself and realized I booked it all wrong. And then swallowing, I actually had to pay more, right, to go. And I'm like, no, I have to do this. This is for me. Right. Yeah. And so it was huge.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I know, and this is, for as holistic practitioners, we so want to help people. Yeah. And I get that a lot of people step into BodyMind to better help their clients, better support them. And yes, make more money and leverage their time and all that stuff. And what I've seen is that I fully believe that when you step up and take ownership of your business, there is a depth of healing that is available to you.
I agree. I mean, that truly has been. As I stepped into this program, yes, doing all that, wanting to be more for my clients, I have to be there more for me first. Otherwise, there is no energy for everybody else. And that was a big learning.
Yes. And also as you, and I remember this as you really owned just the level at which you support people, to sit down and have this conversation of I want to support you in your journey was a massive transformation for you. Yeah. To love and own all of what you were bringing into the sessions.
Yes.
They couldn't receive the depth of what you have to offer until you sat there and said, oh man, I recognize and I love this in myself.
And that was not easy. And I think you and I have been on this journey for 5 years. I think I got that right. I think I have that right in the beginning. And it was hard to see, right? Even to share amongst my peers and colleagues that I love and trust, just even opening that, that, just even opening up, this is how I do it. I waited. I was always the last one to respond and not share. Yeah. And yet when I shared, I was like, why didn't you share this sooner? It's like, really? Me share sooner? I have something to add? The answer is yeah. And so learning to actually know that I actually add value and own that in me was a big deal, Laura. Big.
What were some of the uncomfortable, things you had to go through to own that value and to claim it?
Part of it was actually hearing what people had to say, how I add value, and not trying to think I'm arrogant. Right. Really unraveling what that meant. And it's still humble to own who you are. And that took a while to unravel that level of arrogance, thinking I'm arrogant if I'm taking it all in. And yet if I don't take it in, how else is anybody else going to honor what I do? Yeah. Right. And that was that was one of the bigger ones, realizing I actually really add that kind of value. And it is only until recently that I knew it in my head, but to really feel it and share it. And I think it's mostly sharing what I do, either, in the coaching and on the table, what shows up. And I've always been hesitant about what shows up. And the little pieces that I do to take care of myself, going, okay, this is what I'm getting. Do I risk sharing this and risk being looked at as, okay, you're crazy, or this doesn't make sense? It's just the invitation and the question, and allowing the client and even myself to realize it may be true what's coming from me, but in this moment may not be for them. And I just let them sit with it and go, okay, I'm okay with what it came out. And typically when I do that, after I've questioned myself in my head and have that fight, and I drop it gently into their lap and I walk away, it could be the next time they come in, it's like, I gave it thought and that actually made sense. I just couldn't hear it then.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's those little bids of trusting, sharing, and then whether I get validated by them or not doesn't matter. It's like, I'm owning that for me.
Well, you mentioned in one of your articles that you are a former people pleaser. So, can
Yes.
you kind of share a little bit about like what was life like before you really stepped into this journey of self-love?
Sure. The Though I was trained to be a people pleaser, I think most of us are. It's more of thinking about everybody else when you're doing something, thinking it's about you.
Mhm.
Oh, this is what this person wants. So my children need this, so I'm going to do it for them. May not fit in my schedule, and instead of asking them maybe to shift it a little bit, I bent myself backwards to
Mm.
fit, and then become resentful later down the road because I bent myself into what they wanted and needed, thinking I was doing it for them.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that because I know we're going to talk about
Yeah.
movement a little bit more, but
Yeah.
like that physicality of that, like bending yourself backwards and
Yeah.
almost like taking on the expectations of who you think they think
Want you to be.
wants you to be, right?
Exactly.
That
Yes.
makes sense.
Exactly.
So,
That totally
like
makes sense.
putting yourself into this like confining,
Yeah. Yes.
what did that feel like? Like physically in your body, what did that
In the
feel
beginning, it was fine, but the more I
like?
did it and took it on for more, whether it's my clients, my parents, my children, my spouse at the time, whoever it was, my friends, it started to constrict my
Mhm.
stomach and my throat. And I was like wanting to bust. But it's like I can't bust. That means I'm not loving to them if I don't stay where I'm at. Yeah. It's like,
So what
oh,
was the moment for you where you knew something needed? Like, how did you know it was time to embark on this journey to make this change? What was that like?
I think it was because I spoke to you after all that happened. My
Mhm.
body was pissed at me. I
Yeah.
wasn't listening. So I ended up creating, gratefully, a benign tumor over my right ovary. Right. It took me down. I had to actually move clients off my schedule and take time for myself, which I didn't normally do. I would work from 7 to 7 or 7 to 8 every day, thinking I was doing what I needed to do. It took a tumor to make me stop.
Wow.
Yeah. And then recovering from that and getting real with what was happening, not only with my business, but also my personal life.
One thing, and if I'm leaning in too much, I'm just.
No, lean in, lean in.
This is something that I hear all the time from like heart center practitioners. In the time of getting this tumor, were you telling your clients,
Listen
make
to your
space for
body.
yourself, listen to your body?
Yeah, it's all of that. And yet
Yeah.
I wasn't even listening to my own.
Were there signs, like if you look back now, like I know it
Yes.
took the tumor, but can you look back now and be like,
Oh, yeah.
what were some of those more subtle signs that you can recognize now that maybe somebody listening,
Sure.
like this is their like we have another body mind coach who always said like life's gonna like hit you across the face with like a twig and then maybe a stick and then eventually it's going to be a branch.
Yes.
Like start to listen to when the twig hits you versus the branch, right? So
Correct.
if you can look back, oh, I hope I didn't freeze. There you are,
No, no,
Carolyn.
you get you're
Okay.
not thinking about. Anyways, if I go all the way back, I think it was when I started to feel little squigglies in my body, which I always feel them anyways, but more of just this is unusual. And maybe just paying
Yeah.
attention a little more for that, one. And two, it was more of I was getting more tired and I wasn't taking I just instead of what I tell people, take time, you feel tired, take time to be with yourself. I wouldn't. I just added more people to my schedule. I just ignored it. I think
Mhm.
that can't be me. I can keep going.
Yeah.
So it was more of just paying those really subtle. I wasn't eating enough. I wasn't sleeping enough. I wasn't doing anything else that I tell everybody else to go do.
Yeah.
And if I had just taken a little bit more time and then maybe gone to the doctor a little sooner, I probably would have caught it a little sooner. And yet I wasn't paying attention. People did ask that question. You're a massage therapist. Didn't you notice? It's like, yes. And I ignored it.
Yeah. I know for me, now I didn't have an extreme situation as you. Like my breaking point, what I remember was, and I'll start with the subtle signs. I think for me, it was like, because I love the interaction that happens on a massage table. I love people. I love connection. I love the conversations. And I think one of the subtle signs was like what you said, being tired, but also like I started to see, oh no, I'll be going to sound like a bitch. I would see people on my calendar and just feel like,
Yes.
like the little bit of dread, you know. Oh, got a little feedback there. And then it was kind of like just not excited to work, not excited to want to see people. And there was also like, if somebody was like, hey, can I schedule, like the immediate, yeah, okay, when do you want to come in? Like there was this loop of like, if I say no to this person, I'm not helping them, I'm missing out on the money. There was always this like how quickly I lost myself as soon as somebody needed me.
Well, I agree. And I think that's what I was seeing. That's why I was filling my schedule until 8 at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So you had this wake up call with thankfully a benign tumor. What happened next? Like when you think about this journey of self-love, what were some of the key components that had to happen for you to really, as you said, face the parts of yourselves and bring them back home?
Realizing I needed help. In my recovery, my parents actually had to move in because I couldn't drive. There was nothing I could do. I actually had to surrender to the help. I think that's the biggest thing I see with my clients. If I need help, that means there's something wrong with me.
Wow.
Right. So, even just getting up out of the chair, I needed help. Right. Because I was under 100 pounds. Yeah. So it was more of, the realization of I truly needed help. And there was nothing I could do but to let go.
Wow. So that surrender, was that kind of the surrender and allowing yourself to receive help?
Yes.
Isn't it funny how it's like, we know this and tell people this. And I have to say, this has been a lesson I still continually have to learn of. It's okay for other people to receive help. But if I do, here's the story I tell myself.
That's right. There's a story. And it's been a big deal. Even now, I still have it. It's much less than it used to be. Yeah. That was one of the biggest ones. For mom and dad to be at my house for 3 months. 3 months. Yeah. That's like, oh my God. But it was the best time ever for me to learn that piece, and my parents to see how my life has been and support me in ways that I didn't realize they could and wanted to support me. I always wanted to do it myself.
Wow.
Prove to them, right back to that people, I can do this myself. So yeah.
Proving.
It's about the proving.
That's a fun thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. What were other structures or maybe some things that you were able to tap into again to find more of this self-love for yourself?
I think more of it was some of the things the things I learned with you afterwards. I was searching. I think that was what's happening. I was searching for other tools and ways and people. How do you do that? And you were one of them. You spoke loudly to me. I just couldn't get over the connection that I felt. And I'm like, oh, this is what I needed. Didn't know that's what I really, really needed, and how deep we were going to go and how much we were going to uncover. And yet your story touched me to go, okay, this is where I need to be for myself. So it was in that search, I found other tools. There was you. There were YouTubes. Dr. Joe Dispenza was another. A few others that were out there that spoke to me, my mind, how to manage that, meditating in a way that created space for me, but also being able to say no. Right. And no was not part of my vocabulary. It was always yes. Right. As a people pleaser, it's always yes. Right. So learning to exercise the no.
Learning to exercise the no.
Yeah.
That sounds to me like boundaries.
Yes. We talked about boundaries. Yes.
Some boundaries. Yes. As you're saying this, something's coming out that I know is also kind of core to who you are, which is movement.
Yes.
What is the role movement has played in your journey?
Wow, I just got tingles all over my body. I didn't realize it until working through some of these articles and understanding that movement is such a big deal. Muscle therapy and massage is movement because I'm helping clients do that. Because I didn't do enough of it for myself, I didn't realize I needed it, right? In that way, didn't realize how much dance, I do dance the hula, how much of that really allowed my body, because it's a full body process of feeling. It's not just learning the choreography. And I got that pretty profoundly preparing for this dance I did for this couple over the weekend. In doing the dance and feeling it, it moves the energy wherever it's stuck. So one task I got, I was in the middle of something last year in the middle of the pandemic, and I had some tension in my shoulder and in my hip. Went to the chiropractor. That didn't cut it. I actually had to physically move my body. I was told maybe 5 or 6 times I would have to play this song over and over. First time I did it, I was pissed. So I just did it. It did nothing. The more I played the song and moved with it, then I broke down and cried. And I could feel the stuck areas of sadness I was feeling and allowed myself to just feel it. So for me, movement is about feeling. And when you're not moving, you're not feeling. Whether it's the hula, whether it's writing, singing, whatever it is, movement is for you. Painting, rock climbing, and not in excess. I think what I'm noticing with my clients, they think moving in excess, an hour or 2 hours. Okay, I just got to get it out. It's not about getting it out. It's about getting to the point where you feel it and not pushing past the feeling. It's to feel it.
Well, I think that's what's so amazing about, that body-mind process.
Yes.
Is like, holding a trigger point or like, right. For me, I just remember every session, put my hands on the client.
Yes.
And I always did this thing where I would just, sit there for a couple breaths and I waited for the client to let me in. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. Yes.
And sometimes it took a little bit longer
Yeah.
with some clients.
Yes.
But there's this moment when in the movement, I felt like they're, very subtly their body just kind of connected. And I could start to feel like that wave of energy move through the body. And I could feel places where it's like,
yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm like, yes, they drop in
it. Like we feel right. You feel that. And then the places where things felt, stuck. This is coming up that I'll just say is helping the client see. I think there's this misconception, like when a client has a knot or a place where something feels stuck, there's this automatic something's wrong.
Yes, exactly. It's whatever. Do I have something? What I do? Yes.
Yeah, and I have to get rid of the thing that is wrong. I have to push out, shove through, power, which all of that language, when you start to hear this, you're like the fighting.
It's a fight.
The disconnection that happens when we have this preconceived notion around what that means. But I just remember I would always you ease into those places and it was just your hands are pulled to it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly that. They're like, how do you know? It's because that's where it feels like it needs to go.
Tell me. Know. Yeah. And you're there. And I just always remember one of my things is even in places where things feel stuck, there's still movement.
Yes.
And if I can just be here and feel where that movement is and start to dance with it.
Yes.
It starts to shift, it starts to move. And then also in that coaching piece, starting to work with clients to make this connection.
Yes. Because they're disconnected from it, right? Because they're going, it's just pain. Sometimes they feel like it's, or it's I don't even feel it. Sometimes they don't even feel it.
Yeah.
So with my hands on top of it, they still can't feel the pain. Well, let's take a moment and breathe into it and feel that. And then they get to dance it with their breath and even with their thoughts. So it's that movement, even in those moments when they can drop out of their thoughts and move into that space where it is a little more stuck. And then just breathe into it. It's scary. For some of them, it is extremely scary to feel. And I remember that even in your program, feeling, I don't want to go feel that. It's like, let's go in and feel it. Gently did that. And you did that. The master program I did, it took all that time to finally feel enough, right? And break wide open. I think it's fearing breaking wide open.
Yeah. Oh. So I have like 5 questions in one.
Okay, go
like we're getting to the good stuff,
yes,
right?
We are. Yes.
And I'm this moment of enough. Can we talk about it for a little bit?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, because it
was huge.
It was, and it is a pivotal moment, in your life, and it is one of the most sacred, beautiful moments in my life that I'm so grateful to have ever witnessed. So, and I kind of want to loop back something that you said earlier as well. And this idea of like breaking open, right? Can we have self-love if we're not willing to break open? You said something about risk earlier.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing about self-love is like you have to risk breaking open and seeing the shadows and seeing those things. And again, that's where I think, on the surface, they look stuck. They look like trigger points. They look like pain. And it's like when you lean into the movement, there's a risk, because the risk is if you feel this, you might crack open.
Right.
And there's a moment that I was fortunate enough to witness where I think we saw this happen for you. Can you share maybe a little bit of
Absolutely. Yes.
Share it. I mean, I can do the color commentary.
That moment, because we've been leading all the way up into it, doing, the first program and then doing the master program with you. I've been holding back. I will honestly tell you, holding back, not knowing I was holding back. I always share a little bit here and there. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and let me just say something. So I have now we've had hundreds of people go through BodyMind, and we know that like it's we know here. This is the funniest thing that I can say this a million times, and like people don't get it until they get it.
That's right.
We're here to teach this body-mind piece, and people come in from their heads trying to get the things right and make it perfect and do the people pleasing, and the process is body-mind. And
we were up here.
It is so normal for people to be like, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna if I just stay in my head, I'm safe.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the whole process that you already tell your clients this, like, let's not, like, Carolyn, you were telling your clients probably all the same stuff that you coach them in now, even before we ever met.
Yes.
Just giving it away for free, not owning it, not valuing it, not loving yourself enough for them to love themselves to the point that is possible.
Yes.
So I just want to say that that's okay. So, and I have learned now that, like, we love and support people, and we hold the space.
Right.
And there's a moment when people drop down.
They drop in. Exactly.
And so we were at,
we were in Laguna.
We were in Laguna for a workshop, for a retreat, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and you were right. You laid it out just right. It was all in the head. I had done all the check boxes. I was going to do exactly, and I did. And I expanded. My business definitely expanded even more. And yet there was more to even uncover. Mm-hmm. So even in the check boxes, and I was, so lack of better word, doing it perfect, people pleasing and doing it all right. When we got to that moment of the exercises we were doing to drop into the body and feel, the last part was having those photos taken.
Yes.
I like having my photo taken.
Okay, so I brought in a photographer for this retreat, which actually, we've been talking about bringing it back, because it is a powerful retreat.
It's powerful. Yes.
We have a photographer who's also a somatic release practitioner, or somatic process. I know there's a specific term for hers.
Yes, there is. I just can't remember. Yes.
So she does somatic work using photography.
Yes.
And this idea that when people think of a selfie, right? Somebody's talking, blah, blah, blah. Hold up the camera. How do you contort yourself in front of a camera?
Right.
And thinking about that in life, of how do we put ourselves in, as we kicked off this call, into that box to be a certain way, you know. So anyway, so I brought this photographer in and we did this workshop, and then we went and took pictures.
Right.
So,
and of course, I was
color
the last
commentary over here.
I was the last one. Conveniently, I was the last one to come to the table and talk about the photos. And I don't like having photos. My hands went up. I don't like having photos. Boy, did she go deep. It was more of, why don't you? Right? It was about the question. Every question she asked peeled back a little bit more. And then pretty soon it was enough.
Yeah.
And the hand went up. Enough already. It was enough. And at which moment I broke down crying because I didn't realize I was hiding behind this huge wall of people pleasing and protecting, that I wasn't even sharing my authentic self, my true self, because I didn't even love myself until that moment. Even with all the work you and I had done, it was in that moment that I saw myself and loved myself in that moment to actually be photographed in the rawness of that moment and of that day. I mean, it was such a powerful moment, because I sit here and recall and feel those feelings. And I know Sandy will probably watch this later, and she had her dog Jax.
Oh
my God.
Oh my God. We'll have to talk about Jax. Oh, okay.
Because he saw me too. And when I wasn't willing to see myself, because I did a little bit of work on him too prior to all that. And as we finished the photos and we were finishing that time up, he came into the circle and saw me. And I did the ugly cry, thanking him in his subtleness, because he was not feeling well. All the way across in the other room, step into the circle. And we both broke. We were all crying at that moment, because in that moment, I accepted myself. Right. With that compassion. He had no words for it, but as sick as he was, he walked in the middle of that. And he showed me how to love me.
Yeah. And for those of you listening, Jax, I think he was 14, I want to say.
I think so.
German Shepherd mix. I swear to God, had this like Native American chief energy, healer energy about him. And again, so I'm going to come back in and add the color commentary, both to the photo and to this moment. So we had spent these amazing, 2-3 days together. And at the very end, literally, we were doing our closing circle and just like having like this amazing experience. And it was Carolyn's turn to share, I think what you had received. Yes. And Jax literally, like at this point, he had struggled with incontinence and had arthritis, like trouble walking, and literally like stood up, walked straight into the circle to Carolyn. And it was like this whole thing, right? Like just broke down, right? So it was absolutely beautiful. And the photo, so we were all on the beach, and we did this workshop, and then everybody had a turn to do the photos with Sarit. And it was like, I just remember watching you, and it was like, as you started to move, right? Like the ocean behind you, you were moving, and the photo shoot, like, we're not like headshot, do this. It was like, what I love about Sarit was just that she wants you to get into your body. She's like, she can sense the moment you land. And there was just this like waves coming up. And for me, witnessing it was just this energy, like rising up your legs. Like it just came up, and then you put your hand out and you said, enough. Am I allowed to share the photo in this thread?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll go find it on Sarit's bio so that y'all can go follow Sarit as well, because
that would be great. I think
she's amazing. So I'll go find that, and that way you can follow Sarit and also see Carolyn's beautiful photo. I mean, I want to thank you, because I think that is probably one of the truest moments of self-care or self-love that I have ever witnessed, ever known, ever felt. And I mean, it changed me. And it said, to be like, okay, where in my life is it like enough? Risk the cracking open. Oh my God.
It was big. And that moment led to where I am today. Taking those little risks, as uncomfortable and sometimes painful, to actually listen to what my heart wanted as opposed to what my head and everybody else would think I needed. Learning to trust my heart with some self-certainty and self-love, realizing this is what's right for me. And what's right for me is right for everyone else because I'm choosing it for myself first.
What's right for me is right for everybody else.
Yeah.
Because I'm choosing myself first.
Because I'm choosing myself first. And daring or risking to do that really opens more doors. Far more doors than I ever thought it would open, and more joy that I never thought I could experience. Yeah.
And I know that moment was, it wasn't, you had that moment and everything was joyful and cheery. Like
in that moment, yeah.
That moment was, you made some big choices after that.
I did.
Well.
After that, I made some big choices in regards to my business. I had to really face that I wanted more out of my business, and I can contribute more. That was one. The other had to do with my relationship. This was my second marriage. It wasn't working, and it really forced me to take a look at it. And it was still a couple more years after that, facing those harder questions and conversations to finally decide that it wasn't what we both needed or wanted anymore. And then to take that risk and realizing that actually my business could support me and the girls, not realizing I had done it. And when I had made that decision, we both did it amicably. And then to step out and do it, it's like, oh, I am doing it. It was a big deal.
Yeah. Oh, I have goosebumps. Can you share a little bit about where you are in your journey now and what self-love looks like for you today?
I can do that. Yeah. And some of it will be in the next article that we're asked to write.
I know, because y'all, you have to we have some exciting things that are coming up, but if you haven't gone and gotten your Body Mind Living magazine, go
get it.
And I love your articles, and also on Instagram at Body Mind Living. We share stories and clips, but I love your hula video. Like that one, I was like, oh my God, like it was just it makes me cry. So anyway.
It's in that level of self-love, taking that risk. Okay, I don't usually I don't like being taped. I mean, getting photography done now is much easier than it used to be, so I can get into that. But it was, oh my God, I'm going to do the hula. It was a challenge I asked of myself, and to step into learn it, and then to be videotaped. I actually didn't want to see it. You have no idea how scared I was to actually do that one.
Yeah, or maybe I have a hard time watching any of my videos. Like,
yeah. Okay, good.
We're doing our boot camp stuff next week, and I've been reviewing stuff, and I was like, I hate watching myself.
It's hard.
Yeah,
it's way hard. And just knowing to do that piece, it's that those little pieces. Okay, I'm gonna say yes to myself, not no, yes to myself. Yeah. That challenge. Even doing the articles we're doing for Body Mind Living, right? The first one was the most difficult. I can't even. I was so flippin' scared.
Well, you said something that I loved in that one. This is the change one. So navigating change is a dance. Our body is a beautiful compass when we are aligned with our heart and mind. I love the grace and fluidity of the hula and the story the body tells aligned with the heart and the mind. Like any story, the dance of our lives, the dance and our lives do shift and change as we move. Nothing stays the same. Even with practice, dancing can be messy, clumsy, and when you get into your head, nothing flows. I learned the more attuned I have become with my own body, mind, heart, the more navigating change is about embracing the imperfection, the messy startup, the misstep. It's about surrendering to the outside influences and allowing my inner wisdom to guide each choice, each movement. It takes courage and vulnerability to allow things to flow, and it is more painful to hold everything in the mind.
Actually, I wrote that.
You wrote that. You wrote that.
I wrote that. It was inspired because in that moment when we were tasked to write, I was scared because at this point I'm going to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see me. And I think just taking up the challenge to write was a big deal. I could have said no. I really could have said no, but I trust you. And I trust the process. And I knew in that process I was going to grow and evolve to who I came here to be seen, to be heard, to be felt. First from myself and then to others. Other people were seeing it and I had not seen it. People closest to me going, you don't see it. And I'm like, see what? What are you seeing? I actually had to turn around and go look. I had not wanted to look. So in the writing, it was a reflection of where I've come and where I'm going. Mm-hmm. And it is a dance. In that moment, I'll share that there was an opportunity to meet someone. You know, it's been 2.5 years and was introduced by some friends. We were introduced. It was great. I was like, yeah, introduced. He's probably going to watch this later too. And he's going to, oh my God. We were introduced and I didn't hear from him. And so typically, okay, so I am older than I look. Typically the guy usually sends messages and I'm like, okay, yeah, did a course on that one too? Did it? It's like, no, own yourself. Hadn't heard. I was getting the intuitive hit. You need to send the text. I'm like, me? Right. So it was taking that courage to listen to that intuitive little voice and take a chance, take that risk. Right. And that was hard, but I thought, okay, I'll do it. No expectation, no pressure. Send the message. Hey, this is Carolyn. Our friends introduced us. Are you ready for some coffee? I put the phone down and walked away. Did not want to know. I come back later to the phone. He responded within less than 2 minutes saying, yes, I'm out of town. How's this day? Holy crap. That actually happened. That actually happened. So it's in those little itty bitty steps, knowing that I don't know how it's going to be received, but if I received me, I think what I learned the most, when I receive me, irregardless of the other person, whether it's a client, my children, and this new person, I've received me. Then I've loved me.
So when you receive you,
yes,
what?
I'm full and complete. I'm not waiting for someone to validate me. I'm not waiting for someone to approve of me, and I have nothing to prove. It's an invitation for them to be in presence with me as long as I'm in presence with myself.
Mic drop.
Okay. Woo.
So if we go back to our initial definition of self-love is facing those parts of yourself, bringing them back home. There's also a level of, and when I receive myself, I am full. I am complete. I almost hear like, I am alive, I am free. And then
all of that.
The invitation becomes, and then other people get to experience this with me.
That's right. Exactly.
Like shedding the should, shedding the proving, shedding.
All
you were at the retreat where the proving cycle happened.
Oh, that's right.
You were, because we now teach that. Like,
oh, no way.
That is a whole thing. Yes, yes.
Right.
I'll send you we have a training on it. I'll send it to you.
Ooh, I like that. Yes, yes, and yes.
Yeah. Yeah. For those of you listening in, we now have, this is something we teach at, we actually teach this out live within the BodyMind coaching course, but we talk about the proving cycle.
Okay.
So,
yes. Oh yeah. That's that whole cycle you did. Yes.
Yes.
I remember that. Oh yeah. It's in my head. I can see it.
Yes. So I feel like I need to do a full podcast just on that story because that was enough. Like, Carolyn, so let me, we kind of talked about this and then we'll start to wrap up our conversation. I so appreciate your message yesterday of where you said, thank you for risking yourself and putting yourself out there to be seen, right? I think sometimes there's this like, the old definition of self-love is once I've figured it out,
Right.
once I am perfect, once I have
Mm.
checked all the boxes,
Right.
then I can do the thing, put myself out there, put the course out, then I can raise my prices, then I can find the love of my life, right? Like
Right.
we live in this weird little if then scenario.
Correct.
And obviously this is and so what happens is when we live in that scenario, we start to think that we have to prove a certain set of qualities and again
Beliefs,
checking the
patterns.
boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah. And I look back at my journey and how much, like, one, I fully believe that everybody who is listening to this, no matter where you are, you have what you need for your next step.
Yeah.
And the next step is the willingness to receive for you who you are, know that you are worthy, and then put the thing out there. Like, take the risk, right?
Take the risk.
Take the risk. And I think about that moment that we had in Laguna, like that changed me and allowed me to take my next step. I think about the moment at workshop where we literally watched this proving cycle kind of come out in real time.
Yes.
And now that moment, I was willing to risk myself, right?
Yeah.
Get in front of a group,
Exactly.
teach,
Yes.
right? Be live. And again, it's like a whole story. So I won't like go down the rabbit hole of that moment of how I was basically, I'll give you the short version. I was teaching and somebody said something that I could have easily let derail
That's right.
me.
Yes.
But instead I saw it as an opening. And because I saw it as an opening, it has now been something that we intentionally teach over and over and over again. So it's actually served so many people. And it was a risk.
Yes.
It was a risk.
Yes. And knowing now that you just said all that, it's an opening. It was a shift in perspective or point of view, is that this is an opening. I can choose to walk through it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And in the choice of walking through it, everything expands. You're right. We have everything until the next moment. I think what I've been seeing for people, they want to know, 100 paces out in front of them. It's like, no, you have just this moment. And in this moment, you're in the present moment, the now. And in that now, so much more opens. And I cannot tell you, even just dropping that text to get coffee, I didn't realize I'd be in this moment now, in a new relationship, happy and excited and all these other pieces. So, it's all of those. It's a surprise. By not going so far out and just being in the moment, not committing to the potential, but committing to the moment, I think is really what the moment to listen to me, what my heart wanted, risking it in that way, whether it's my business, whether it's personal, whether it's sharing with a client, this is what I'm intuitively receiving. Take it or leave it. I need to share it. And even that's a risk.
Yeah.
Right. And doing that, things even open up even more. So it's like, whoa, what is happening? So it's all those little steps. I mean, you've given enough framework for that. I didn't know that you'd done that. Now that you just said, I didn't realize you had done that, and doing that, I embodied it. I didn't realize. And so each step of the way has allowed me to take the bigger risks and step in even more. So even to do this wedding, I did officiate, but I also did a hula for them by myself. I thought officiating would be more difficult. It was the hula. Because my heart and soul, as I sit here, I did not realize how much of it was moving through me to share with them. Of course, I knew in my head, but to feel it and to experience it at that level. So it is a thank you, because I don't know if I would have gotten there now if I had not seen you and taken the risk to want more and the potential of what was possible for me and my family.
I adore you.
I love you. Thank you.
Is there any final words of wisdom that you might want to share for anybody who's listening to this?
I think the biggest things I'm hearing right now is I am worthy and I am deserving of that risk. My self-love is most important. We need that today. That's our light. When we can shine more of our own light, we can move through all this uncertainty that's moving through us right now. Whew. Wow.
I would love to hear, for those of you listening, please share what landed for you. I feel like I have like pages of notes. There are so many wisdom bombs that came out of that. So I love this, like yeah. I'm super, super excited right now. And Carolyn, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for saying yes, for taking that risk, to demonstrating fully and openly and lovingly, what this journey looks like. You have inspired me in so many ways. Again, I think back to that moment, like, because you loved yourself enough to say enough, I was able to say, oh my God, where am I ready to say that in my life? And this is like, for those of you who are like the helpers, the people who want to give, like that is how you serve.
That's right. I learned that with you. Thank you.
I think you knew it. You just remembered it because you said yes to work. I was just the vehicle. I don't want to take credit for your intuitive genius.
You allowed it to happen. You had the tools.
Just held the space for it.
You did.
Held the space for it. And I adore you. And where can people find you and follow you and connect with you?
It's Soma Wise, MT, M as in Mary, T as in Tom, .co. No M, just CO.
Sweet. And I believe in the description of this video, I also included your Instagram account.
Perfect.
So you can go follow her, Soma Wise MT.
MT. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very good. Please go follow her. I'm going to go, find this photo and I will put it into the comment section so y'all can go see that and also see Sarit, who is the amazing photographer who took the picture.
Exactly.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
yay.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.